Welcome to the newest episode of Beyond the Fame with Jason Fraley. I'm your host, Jason Fraley, picking the brains of the top filmmakers, musicians, and artists of our time. Rufus Wainwright performs live at the Anthem in Washington, D.C. this coming Tuesday. We spoke about his versatile career of pop and opera, including being named Rolling Stone's Best New Artist of 1998, recording Hallelujah for the Shrek soundtrack, and even donating sperm to Leonard Cohen's daughter to raise a child of his own.
Hello.
Hey, Rufus Wainwright, thanks for joining us on WTOP.
No problem. Hello. It's been a long time since I've played DC, so DC proper. I've done little gigs around there, but yeah, no, I'm very excited to get back to our nation's capital.
Are you excited to get back to touring in general? How has the last year and a half been for you? Like, where does this show fall for you in terms of getting back out?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I have managed to stay busy throughout the entire pandemic. I actually needed the time to just sort of focus on songwriting and even practicing piano and also working on like some musicals and stuff. So I took it as a gift actually. But yes, I miss traveling. I miss seeing my fans, and I do miss just the electricity, I guess, of a live audience with a live performance. I am excited to get back out.
Well, wait a second. Before you said you were working on some musicals during the pandemic. What's that about?
Yes. Well, I mean, I can't announce anything formally, but all throughout my career, even since my first album, I've constantly been asked, when are you going to write a musical? This is ridiculous. I mean, your material is so, it's just very suited and for that style and is very much part of that tradition. So I'm now finally, taking on that challenge, and I have three or four options, as is often the case in this bit in the musical business, because it is such a hard monster to wrestle. And yeah, no, I'm gonna go wholeheartedly in that direction in the very, very near future.
Great, that's exciting. We can't wait to see what the musicals are. And I mean, there's so much. I mean, yeah, you can do all different sorts of mediums. We've seen you do operas. We've seen you do these Shakespeare sonnets
Yeah,
set to music. We can get to all that in a little bit if you want, but take me back to the beginning of your music career. I mean, you were born in what, 73 in New York State, but how did you get into music,
yes.
as a kid? I guess both your parents were musicians, right? Is that what did it?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, I was a kind of poster child for kind of showbiz lore in the sense that I mean, I wasn't quite born in a trunk or anything, but my first ever crib outside of the hospital was a guitar case because
So
actually my
modified
mother
bandwagon. Yeah, you weren't born in a trunk,
yes,
not quite
yeah,
the bandwagon, but
yeah, yeah, but it's more the folk rock version. So because my mom went to my dad in the in the studio after the hospital, anyways, and they didn't have a crib, so they put me in a guitar case, and from a very, very early age, I expressed a real precocious nature and love to sing and perform and my mother very much took on the challenge, and really enjoyed that whole process. She loved to teach people music in general and to play music with people. So to have her son so eager, I think, was a real blessing that she took advantage of. And here I am today. So it started really early. I then, but I, and then also my sister Martha Wainwright, she got into it, and then my other sister Lucy Wainwright later. Lucy Wainwright wrote. So it seems to be. I guess it's the family business, and we're all just trying to keep the department store and you know working.
I love it. Born in a guitar case. I love that. Well, cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, so you have all these family influences, but when do you think you actually when was that like pivot point from
Yeah.
being like, okay, I'm just, it's a thing my family does to you saying, you know what, I'm really,
Right.
really going to try to
Yeah.
take this seriously as a profession.
I mean, I you mentioned earlier opera. I when I was about 13 years old, I had a major conversion to opera, to a lot. I was kind of plunged into this passion for that type of music, and it was very dramatic, very intense, very quick. You know, I just heard one piece. I was listening to Verdi's Requiem when I was about 13, and it just, I don't know, it changed my life. And after that 2 hour here, you know, that 2 hour kind of seance or whatever, I could only listen to opera, and that I think was really for me the beginning of my personal journey into the world of music. And specifically, especially with songwriting, because I knew very well immediately that there were so many, uh, how should I say this? I don't want to call them tricks, but you know, just there's so many tools, and such a history in opera that I could then, you know, take from and learn from and incorporate into my songwriting and make it into this whole other kind of approach. So yeah, so I think really once I hit the opera iceberg, that's when my ship sank, and I became who I am today.
I love that you describe it as a conversion, a seance to opera. It's almost like a
Yeah.
spiritual experience for you. I love that.
Oh, it was very much a spiritual experience. In fact, I to this day I give it that much importance, and I do credit opera actually with saving my life on a couple of occasions, you know.
Wow,
So
wow. Wow. So you said you hit that iceberg of opera, and then your music career is
yeah,
born. Um, Take us,
yeah,
remind our listener, a lot of us remember your self-titled debut. I guess it was with DreamWorks Records. Um,
yes.
Self-titled. And I think what in 1998, and Rolling Stone says your best new artist. I mean, how much does that just change your life and shove you in a whole different direction?
Yeah, I mean, thankfully I wasn't kind of aware at the time of what was happening too much. I mean, I was certainly excited about, you know, getting all this attention, and about being, you know, in the spotlight, and having, you know, true uh power behind me, in terms of what that meant years ago when you were on a major label. But above that, I think I was more concerned with the music and with the quality of the recordings, and with, you know, the performance that I wanted to you know, try to pull off. So I tended to, how can I say this? I think my attitude was like, oh, of course, I'm, you know, best new artist in Rolling Stone, is because I am the best new artist. I mean, it didn't seem like such a stretch to me, and I just kind of rolled with it, and stuff, and that's funny because I was actually identified by certain people as kind of megalomania, or as a kind of conceitedness, but it actually wasn't. It was just, I felt like it was just part of the process, you know. Like, why would I be doing this if I didn't want to be the best I can be? Anyway, so, but now it's funny because in looking back in hindsight, I am a little shocked at how much opportunity I was given, and how it did really blow up at certain moments with me. Not necessarily financially. I mean, I never was really on the charts or anything, but I there were some real Rufus instances, you know, in the roof instances in the 90s, that were pretty, you know, were very, was very interesting, and I was, you know, in the mainstream
I love that. You
occasionally.
said, yeah, I like that. I like that outlook. You know, it's you already thought of yourself as best new artist, and there was just everyone else was catching
Yeah,
up, catching up.
yeah,
um,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah, but you mean you said you mentioned there had some roof instances in the mainstream. Of course, I guess
yeah.
because you're with DreamWorks, so that I guess that got you to do, you know, the Shrek soundtrack. Hallelujah is like where the
Yes,
main
yes.
everyone.
Having yeah, having that behind the scenes clout with people like, you know, David Geffen and Mo Austin and Lenny Walker. No, no, you I cannot if that hadn't have been in my corner, I don't think I would have been as sort of kind of thrown into the mix that quickly and that intensely. But I still think I would have made it though.
Right.
I was pretty hell bent on climbing the, you know, the ladder, and whether it was off of my own steam or using, DreamWorks, I was going to get there regardless. But yes, I was fortunately I was bankrolled.
Well, you had the artistry to go with it. There's a lot of people that are bankrolled that,
Yeah.
that don't have
Yeah,
anything.
and that was actually, it's funny because that was actually made very apparent to me early on, where I think at one point I might have been, I had a few moments of insecurity and like, why is this going to work, or why is this happening, kind of thing. And I remember Lenny Worker specifically, who did sign me. I mean, he said, Rufus, I signed you because I think you have the talent and you have the ability to be a great star. I mean, that's why I did it, and I don't do it unless I believe that.
Right.
So it was, that was good to hear.
For sure. So when you sit down and do Hallelujah, obviously everyone knew the Leonard Cohen version and
Yeah,
definitely the Jeff Buckley version. You've paid tribute to him
yeah.
in other songs, but this might sound like sacrilege, but I damn sure near might like yours the best, man. I don't
Oh,
know. I know that's hard to say, but how did you make that one your
yeah,
own, such that when you can play these side by side and
yeah,
folks like me might even
yeah,
gravitate and say, man, Rufus's might just be the
yeah.
best.
Yeah. Well, I think what's interesting about my approach is that I had none, in the sense that I didn't know the song, I didn't know Jeff Buckley's version, I didn't know Leonard Cohen's version. I was called in one afternoon to just lay it down with with a famous producer whose name is escaping me right now. The guy who wrote, he co-wrote Like a Virgin or something with Madonna. Anyways, but so yeah, because they were doing the soundtrack for the film, and I just went in and did it. I think it took like an hour, and then it made it onto the soundtrack. Didn't actually make it into the movie. Um, they stayed with the John Cale version, but it did make it on the record, and the record ended up being like such a huge success. It was one of the big albums of that period, and then next thing people were asking me to sing it all the time. So it was very, how can I say, I was very naive and sort of unintent. I had no intent, and I think that can actually be kind of a real blessing in disguise with many things in life. The minute you do try for something, that's when it usually fails. So I was thankfully given that opportunity and took it unwittingly.
Wow. Well, one final point on the Cohen connection before we move to all your other stuff. So I want to get into your operas and stuff, but our listeners might not know that. Didn't you you had a connection, a very special connection with Cohen's daughter, and explain explain. I mean, you created a
Yeah.
life. Explain.
Yes, yeah, no, we share a daughter together, Viva, and yeah, no, I've known the family for many years. I'm quite close to Leonard's son Adam, and I had a very good relationship with Leonard too. So we're all from Montreal, which is a big kind of plus, and it's just it create the craziness of life, allowed us to and brought us this beautiful soul who is Viva, our daughter, and we love her immensely, and she's never ceases to amaze everybody.
Absolutely. Yeah, the craziness of life and the beauty of technology. The fact, the sperm donation, the fact that, I mean, we live in a world where you can make that happen. It's
Yeah,
amazing. It
yeah.
really is amazing. Okay, well, so there's so many, I mean, you tackle all kinds of stuff, themes in your songs. You do a lot about love, you've even, a lot about family. How'd you come up for instance, Dinner at 8? How'd you come up with the David and
Yeah.
Goliath comparison with you and your dad?
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, my dad. That's an interesting song. I wrote Dinner at 8 after I'd had arguably the worst argument with my father ever, um, and we were in Shelter Island, New York, which is in Long Island. Anyways, and we had this big fight, and I actually had to leave the house and drive back to the city that night because we didn't want to talk to each other for a long time. So I went home. I was living at the Chelsea at the time. Went back there, wrote Dinner at 8, and then magically forgot about it for about 3 or 4 years. Actually, it just sort of drifted away, and I didn't put it on, my second album, Poses. Um, but then when it came time to make Want One, my third album, I was just thinking about songs, and then it kind of trickled back into my mind, and what I had, with the whole David and Goliath thing, what I had originally um, stated as a sort of aggressive, you know, what is it, an aggressive example or allegory of my father and I's troubled relationship. I then, in hearing the song after several years, realized that in fact it's a love song. It's about reaching out. It's about like perhaps killing Goliath, but then maybe only injuring him and then bringing him back to life and becoming friends. uh so it's I'm happy that I recorded it, after letting it, that whole situation simmer down a bit, because so much of what we do with our parents is really about love and trying to connect, and it's always good to, but you don't see that immediately, obviously.
Totally. Well, thanks. Yeah, thanks for walking me through all that. That's great. I loved hearing the backstory there. So yeah,
Thanks.
obviously parenting, family. You've done Love a lot, Foolish Love, Leaving for Paris, but you've done some heavier stuff too, like in terms of
Yeah,
thematically, like addiction. I mean, Cigarettes and Chocolate Milk, or I don't know what it is, or
yeah,
there's lots of addiction
yeah,
songs.
yeah, yeah.
How much was that catharsis for you? How much do you hope that it's helped other people listening to it?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I had this amazing aunt named Teddy, my aunt Teddy. She was my dad's sister. She sadly passed away about a year ago. Anyways, but she had, she was in recovery, and her whole thing was, Rufus, alcoholism doesn't run in our family, it gallops.
Oh
And
man, that
so it's always been, it's always been around, and there's been several different members have dealt with it in several different ways. I feel very fortunate that I've been able to, you know uh, I'm never gonna say conquer it, because I think once you say you've conquered it, that's when you're, right on the cusp of losing again. But I've managed to face it, shall we say, over the years, and really, work with it, and yeah, I consider myself very lucky. I mean, I'm, there's, you know especially also, I think, here in LA, you see it a lot. Just so many people suffering from addiction and drug and alcohol abuse, and especially with COVID and stuff, like the homeless situation is so out of control, and you just see people really who don't have the resources, who don't have the support, who don't have, the family to and friends to help them through it. I just feel really fortunate in the end of the day.
Yeah, well, I'm very, hats off to you that you, like you said, not only beat it, but you face it every day. I guess, yeah, you don't want to jinx it, but yeah, you face it every day with courage, and yeah, I'm just, it's nice to see how everything's turned out for you. I guess next year, or what'll be 10 years married, your husband, the German arts administrator.
Yeah, no, yeah, yes, yeah. We just celebrated our ninth anniversary of marriage, and next year will be 10. We've been together for almost 17 years, as a couple. So it's, yeah, no, we're. What's the most amazing is how fast the time flies. That to me is the most horrific side of this whole equation. It's just, at the snap of a finger, it's been 20 years that you've been together, and it's just gone so quickly, which is a beautiful thing in a way, but also, a little scary.
Well, and now anything worth doing is a little scary, right? So yeah, I mean, well, and now you've sort of come full circle. The two of you are parenting, like you got in those scraps with your
Yeah,
own father, and now you two are doing the parenting, and it's come full circle.
yeah, yeah. No, I mean, in terms of my own little, po pocket of the world here, I feel really great, and I'm, I have nothing to complain about. That being said, in general is in trouble,
Right.
whether it's environmental or political stuff, and there is a real, we live in incredibly tumultuous times, and I do think that it's gonna get more intense before it gets uh, easier to handle. So it's but I feel prepared. And I also feel that out of this, chaos will come kind of a new perspective on the way the world is. I mean, so many amazing things have happened, whether it's, and I'm part of it, whether it's things like gay marriage, or even two dads being able to be, respected as that, or and stuff. And then, and of course, then we go back 10 steps when these, abortion laws come up and stuff like that. So it's fits and starts, but nonetheless, it's a wild time to be alive.
It really is, and such a good point. Yeah, I mean, I guess what you had the Buddha judge and his partner. They're raising kids now, and you beat them to it. You showed them the ropes. But yeah, like so for every depressing thing in the world, there are those glimmers of hope of we have come a long way in a lot of ways too.
We have, but there's a slap back that we have to contend with. So.
And I think you're right. I think the chaos is going to get worse before it gets better. It's just may you live in interesting times. Well, yeah, to say the least.
Yes, here we are.
Cool. Well, before we run, I definitely want to, I want to turn our listeners over to make sure they check, if they like your music, to check out your operas too, because it was such a powerful thing for you as a child, you said. Tell me about how rewarding was it to finally do Prima Donna and then Hadrian after that? It was something that you loved and were obsessed with as a kid, but finally to sit down and do it yourself and be respected too, to get the acclaim for it. That must have felt great.
Yeah, no, these are great. This is a great chapter of my life. These two operas, two great chapters. Prima Donna has, it's had its ups and downs. It was by no means a critical, success. But that being said, there's been 7 productions of it all over the world. A lot of singers love singing it, and it seems to have survived and is now starting to flourish again, which is often the case with operas. Operas are famously, ravaged before they they said the same thing about Carmen. So there's that. And then Hadrian, we're doing Hadrian this summer in Spain, at the Teatro Real and another place in Spain after. And so that they seem to have lives of their own now, these works, and that's about the best you could do. So I'm very proud of that excursion that I fearlessly went out on and survived.
Oh, definitely. You not only survived it, you succeeded, my friend. So yeah, I mean, I guess before we run, I also want to mention you recently the Shakespeare Sonnets project, Take All My Love. I guess it was for some theater stuff that Robert Wilson was doing. How did you even, was that his idea, your idea, or how do you even?
Well, it was I had used, my mother loved the sonnets, and she would often read them when I was young. In fact, there's a famous story in our family where, I think she'd found some kind of dirty laundry when I was hitting, something that I'd wiped some bodily fluids, some newly discovered bodily fluids.
I got you.
And she then she threw me a copy of the sonnets and said, there's something about this in Shakespeare's sonnets, and it was the expensive spirit and a waste of shame or something. So it started like that, and then I just kept writing music to them, and then eventually, I was asked by the Berlin Ensemble in Germany to do this project with Robert Wilson, and how could I say no?
Well, I mean, that's not the answer I was expecting, but that's what these interviews are great about. How that origin of that. Interesting. Well, awesome. I mean, you've done it all. Yeah, the sonnets, operas, the music. I mean, you've been hits on movies, soundtracks. I mean, you've done it all. So we can't wait to see the musical next. I know you can't say anything about it, but it's a good teaser. We can't wait to see it. So, well, anyway, yeah. Thanks for joining us. Again, everyone, check out Rufus Wainwright at the Anthem in DC on September 28th. I appreciate it. This was great.
Okay, thank you.
Catch you later.
Bye.
Thanks so much for joining us on Beyond the Fame with Jason Fraley. Remember to hit the subscribe button and give us a 5-star rating if you like what you hear. We'll see you next time. I wanted to take a second to tell you about an app I really enjoy. Living in the DC area is great, and Podcast DC gathers all of the local shows that I like all in one local app. Health, sports, local news, politics, and so much more. Podcast DC is the new local app with hundreds of DC area podcasts to choose from. I can earn exciting rewards just for listening and share the podcasts I love instantly. Available in the App Store or in Google Play, listen local with Podcast DC.